Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when heaven speaks with urgency, when the voice of God no longer whispers, but thunders, warning us that delay is dangerous. This is not an ordinary season, it is a defining season. The decisions you make today will determine the chapters of your destiny tomorrow. Some of you are standing on the very edge of breakthrough, but breakthrough requires obedience. The question is, will you hear the warning, and will you move before God shifts your destiny? The final call before your destiny shifts is not something to take lightly. It is not just another moment, it is the moment. Life is full of opportunities, but there are rare defining times when heaven issues a last warning, a final invitation, a clear instruction that separates those who enter destiny from those who miss it. You see, every person has a season of visitation, and when that season comes, you cannot afford to delay. You cannot afford to doubt. You cannot afford to negotiate with fear. Because when God speaks, He is not consulting you, He is commanding destiny. Some of you have felt that tug in your spirit, that nudge in your heart, that gentle conviction in your mind telling you, this is your time. But you've ignored it, pushed it away, told yourself, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe when I feel ready. Let me tell you the truth. Tomorrow is not promised. Next year may never arrive, and you may never feel ready. The call of destiny is not about your comfort. It is about your assignment. It is about the reason you were born. And when heaven says move, hesitation is disobedience, and disobedience is costly. Think about Noah. When God said build the ark, He didn't wait for the rain to come before he obeyed. He moved when the warning came. Think about Abraham. When God said leave your country, He didn't ask for a roadmap. He stepped out with faith. The final call always demands radical obedience. Because the difference between ordinary people and history makers is not talent, it is timing. They move when God speaks, even when others don't understand. This is why some people live their whole lives wishing, waiting, dreaming, but never walking into purpose. They missed the final call. They ignored the warning signs. They thought they had more time. But destiny doesn't wait for procrastinators. Destiny responds to the decisive. And here's the truth. Your next season is not waiting on God. It is waiting on your obedience. One decision, one yes, one step of faith could be the very action that shifts your life forever. So let me ask you, what has God been saying to you? What instruction have you been delaying? What warning have you been ignoring? Because the final call before your destiny shifts is not coming tomorrow, it is here right now. And if you miss this season, you may forfeit what was prepared for you. The question is not whether God is ready, the question is whether you are. Are you willing to step into the unknown? Are you willing to trust His voice above your fears? Are you ready to leave behind the comfortable for the call? Because the warning always comes before the shift. But what happens when God interrupts your comfort zone? When God interrupts your comfort zone, it is never convenient, it is never expected, and it is never easy. But hear me carefully, it is always necessary, because comfort is the enemy of growth, and familiarity is the enemy of destiny. The greatest danger in life is not failure, it is success at the wrong thing, being comfortable in a place you were never meant to stay. That is why God will disturb your peace, shake your surroundings, and unsettle what you thought was stable. Not to destroy you, but to push you into what you were created for. Some of you are praying for breakthrough, but you want it without disturbance. You want elevation without disruption. You want promotion without transition. But the truth is, destiny never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in challenges, in changes, in demands that force you to move. If God didn't interrupt you, you would stay stuck in the same routine, the same circle, the same limitations. But when He interrupts, suddenly doors close, relationships shift, jobs no longer satisfy, and you begin to feel uncomfortable in places where you once felt at home. That discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. Look at Moses, comfortable in the palace of Pharaoh, but God interrupted his comfort, sent him to the wilderness, and then called him to deliver a nation. Look at Jonah running in the opposite direction, comfortable in disobedience, until God interrupted his journey with a storm and a fish, and then redirected him to Nineveh. Look at David, comfortable as a shepherd, until God interrupted his life with a giant named Goliath, and suddenly the boy became a king in training. Every destiny shift requires a divine disturbance, because comfort zones are graves for potential. And maybe, just maybe, that frustration you feel right now, that lack of satisfaction, that closed door, that uncomfortable shift is not the enemy working against you. It's God calling you higher. You prayed for purpose, you asked for more, you cried out for destiny, but did you really expect God to leave you comfortable? The blessing of interruption is that it shakes you free from what no longer serves you, so you can enter what He has prepared for you. So I ask you, what has God been interrupting in your life? What relationship, what habit, what environment, what opportunity has suddenly shifted? Don't fight it. Don't resist it. Don't run back to comfort, because comfort will cost you destiny. The only way to step into the next season is to embrace the divine disruption and trust that what feels like loss is actually a setup for greater. The interruption is not rejection, it is redirection. And once you understand that, you'll stop mourning what you lost and start preparing for what's coming. Because the urgency of obedience in divine timing is about to show you why the interruption was necessary. Are you ready for that next level? The urgency of obedience in divine timing cannot be overstated, because obedience delayed is often destiny denied. Timing is everything in the kingdom, and when God speaks, He does not just give instructions, He gives them within a window, a season, a moment that carries eternal weight. You cannot afford to think you have all the time in the world, because the truth is, disobedience is not only saying no to God, it is also saying yes too late. Some doors do not stay open forever. Some opportunities expire, and some assignments must be acted upon immediately. When God called Noah to build the ark, imagine if He delayed. Imagine if He said, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'll wait until I see a cloud in the sky." By the time the rain came, it would have been too late. The ark was not a suggestion, it was an urgent instruction. When God told Lot and his family to leave Sodom, the command was urgent, not optional. Delay meant destruction. And when Jesus called His disciples, the scripture says they left everything immediately. They didn't wait to settle their affairs. They didn't bargain for a more convenient time. They obeyed at once. Why? Because timing is as important as obedience itself. Some of you are hearing God's voice, but you're negotiating. You're saying, "Lord, I'll obey when I have enough money. I'll obey when I feel ready. I'll obey after I handle these other things first." But hear me, delayed obedience is still disobedience. Every day you wait, the opportunity grows colder, the season shifts, and the enemy gains ground. Heaven moves on schedule, not on your convenience. And if you miss the moment, you may forfeit what was meant for you. Obedience is not about understanding everything. It's about trusting the one who knows everything. You may not see the full picture. You may not understand why the instruction is urgent, but God does. He sees danger you cannot see. He knows timing you cannot predict. He understands what is waiting on the other side of your yes. And sometimes the very thing you've been praying for, the breakthrough you've been asking for, is locked behind one act of immediate obedience. So ask yourself, what has God told you to do that you keep postponing? What step have you delayed because of fear, doubt, or excuses? Because every delay carries a cost, and sometimes the cost is greater than you imagine. Your future, your family, your assignment, your influence could all be tied to how quickly you respond to the voice of God. Obedience is urgent and timing is critical. This is why God sends warnings to remind you that windows of opportunity are not forever. The question is, will you act now, or will you wait until it's too late? Because warning signs always come before the breakthrough. But do you recognize them when they appear? Warning signs before the breakthrough are never accidents. They are signals from heaven, whispers in your spirit, indicators that God is about to move you into something greater. But here's the challenge. Most people ignore the signs because they don't look like blessings. They look like problems. They don't look like open doors. They look like closed ones. They don't look like opportunity. They look like opposition. But every warning sign is God's way of preparing you for what's ahead. If you misread the signs, you risk missing the breakthrough. Think about the children of Israel. Before they entered the promised land, they faced giants, fortified cities, and intimidating enemies. Those were not signs that God abandoned them. Those were signs that breakthrough was near. Before Joseph reached the palace, he was betrayed, thrown into a pit, and imprisoned. Those were not signs of failure. Those were signs of preparation. Before Jesus began his ministry, he was led into the wilderness to be tested. The wilderness was not a punishment. It was a warning sign that destiny was about to be revealed. So let me ask you, what signs are showing up in your life right now? Have doors suddenly closed? Have people walked away? Have unexpected challenges risen up? Don't panic. Don't complain. Don't give up. Because the closer you get to breakthrough, the greater the resistance will be. The enemy does not fight what is not a threat. He fights what carries destiny. If you are under unusual pressure, it's not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's proof that you are on the edge of something extraordinary. Warning signs also come as inner unrest. That holy discomfort inside you that says, where I am is no longer enough. You can't sleep the same. You can't settle the same. You can't pretend to be satisfied. That is a sign. Warning signs come as divine instructions, an urging to fast, to pray, to cut off distractions, to prepare yourself. God warns you because breakthrough requires readiness. He will not give new levels to people still clinging to old habits. But here is the tragedy. Many people see the signs and ignore them. They treat them as coincidences, as random events, instead of divine signals. They get discouraged instead of discerning. And as a result, they give up right before the miracle. They quit one step before the door opens. They stop believing one prayer before the answer comes. Don't miss it. Don't misread it. Don't walk away when the signs are pointing to destiny, because warning signs are heaven's way of saying, get ready, something is shifting. And the question is, will you recognize them? Will you prepare? Will you stay faithful? Because after the warning signs comes the moment when the door opens. But what happens if that door closes before you step through it? The last chance before the door closes is a sobering reality, because every opportunity has an expiration date. God is merciful. God is patient, but he is also purposeful. And when he opens a door, he expects you to walk through it. The tragedy is, so many people think the door will remain open forever. They keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll step out when I'm ready. I'll move when I feel prepared. But life does not wait on hesitation, and destiny does not wait on procrastination. A door delayed is often a door denied. Look at Noah again. The ark was open for a season, but there came a moment when God himself shut the door. And when the rain came, no amount of crying, knocking, or begging could reopen it. The opportunity had passed. Look at the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were wise and ready. 5 were foolish and delayed. When the bridegroom came, the door was shut, and though they pleaded, it was too late. Opportunity doesn't negotiate, and destiny does not apologize. When the door shuts, it shuts. The truth is, many of us are not waiting on God. God is waiting on us. He already gave the instruction. He already opened the door. He already positioned the opportunity. But hesitation, fear, and excuses are keeping us outside. And while you hesitate, while you calculate, while you analyze, the door is slowly closing. Don't think you have unlimited time, because the season you are in right now may never return again. And here's what makes it so dangerous. When you miss your season, you don't just miss a moment, you miss an assignment. You miss lives connected to your obedience. You miss the people waiting on your yes. You are not the only one affected when the door closes. Destiny is always bigger than you. Your family, your children, your community, even generations yet unborn could be impacted by your decision to enter or to delay. This is why you must move with urgency. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for every question to be answered. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Faith is never about feeling ready. Faith is about trusting the God who opened the door. And if He opened it, then He already equipped you to walk through it. The last thing you want is to live with regret, looking back and saying, if only I had moved, if only I had trusted, if only I had walked through when the door was open. So I ask you, what door has God opened for you that you have been standing in front of too long? What chance have you been given that you have delayed again and again? Because the last chance before the door closes is happening now, and once it shuts, no man can open it again. But here's the greater truth. When God closes one door, He often prepares another, and sometimes that next door requires a radical decision that shakes everything familiar. Are you ready for that? Divine shifts require radical decisions, because no one enters a new season holding on to the old one. Every shift in destiny demands courage, sacrifice, and a willingness to let go of what feels safe in order to embrace what is promised. The problem is, most people want the blessing of the shift without the cost of the decision. They want change without commitment, progress without pain, elevation without letting go. But the truth is, you cannot step into the unknown carrying the weight of yesterday. At some point, you must decide, do I cling to what I know, or do I trust the one who is calling me forward? Look at Abraham. When God told him to leave his country, his family, and his father's house, he didn't get a detailed plan, he got a decision. Leave. That was it. And that one radical decision positioned him as the father of nations. Look at Ruth. When she chose to leave Moab and follow Naomi, she left behind her culture, her comfort, her old life. That one radical decision positioned her in the lineage of kings. Look at Peter. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he dropped his nets, his livelihood, his security, and made a decision that turned a fisherman into an apostle. Destiny is never cheap. It always requires radical choices. Some of you are standing in the middle of a divine shift right now. You feel the pull. You sense the change. You know the old season has ended. But you're hesitating to decide. You're trying to hold on to both worlds, trying to keep one foot in the familiar and one foot in the future. But divine shifts don't work that way. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot carry old habits, old relationships, old mindsets into a new level. The shift demands a cut, a separation, a radical step that shows heaven you are ready. And yes, radical decisions are scary. They make no sense to people around you. They often don't even make sense to you. But destiny is not for the comfortable. Destiny is for the courageous. The pain of leaving is always temporary, but the reward of obedience is eternal. And here is the truth. Your radical decision may be the key that unlocks blessings not only for you, but for generations after you. Someone is waiting on your courage. Someone's breakthrough is connected to your decision. So let me ask you, what decision have you been avoiding? What step have you been afraid to take? What is God asking you to leave, to release, to walk away from, so that you can embrace what He has prepared. Because until you make the radical choice, the divine shift cannot happen. Every shift requires a decision, and every decision reveals your faith. The only question is, will you choose destiny or will you stay in comfort? Because once you choose, you begin to hear the voice of destiny even in the middle of crisis. Are you ready to hear it? Hearing the voice of destiny in crisis is one of the greatest tests of faith, because crisis does not come to destroy you, it comes to reveal you. It is in the darkest storms, in the hardest seasons, in the most painful places that God often speaks the loudest. But the problem is, many people let the noise of fear, doubt, and confusion drown out the whisper of destiny. They see crisis as the end, when in truth, crisis is often the birthplace of a new beginning. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison. To anyone else, that looked like disaster. But in every stage of his crisis, God was speaking, positioning him, preparing him for the palace. Think about Moses, standing before the Red Sea with an angry nation behind him and Pharaoh's army chasing him down. That was crisis. Yet in that very moment, God spoke and told him to stretch forth his rod, and the sea parted. Think about Paul and Silas, locked in a prison cell, beaten and chained. That was crisis. But instead of giving in to fear, they sang praises. And in the middle of their song, God shook the foundation of the prison and set them free. Crisis always carries a voice, either the voice of fear or the voice of destiny. Some of you right now are in the middle of a storm, and you're asking God, why me? Why this? Why now? But what if the very crisis you are in is the platform God is using to launch you into destiny? What if the pain is producing purpose? What if the setback is positioning you for a comeback? You must tune your ear, because in crisis, the enemy shouts, but God whispers. The enemy says, you're finished. But destiny says, you're just beginning. The enemy says, you've lost everything. But destiny says, you're being prepared for more than you imagine. You see, crisis clarifies. Crisis strips away what doesn't matter. Crisis makes you ask questions you would have never asked. It forces you to search for answers you would have never sought. And it draws out strength you never knew you had. If you can hear the voice of destiny in the middle of crisis, you will realize that what was meant to break you is actually building you. So I ask you, whose voice are you listening to in your crisis? Are you listening to the voice of fear, the voice of defeat, the voice of despair? Or are you listening to the voice of destiny, the voice that says, stand firm, trust me, your future is secure? Because the crisis you are in is not the end of your story. It may just be the very chapter that introduces your greatest breakthrough. And here's the truth. When you hear destiny in the middle of crisis, you step into a moment that defines your future. But what happens in that defining moment will depend on your choice. Are you ready for it? The moment that defines your future rarely announces itself with trumpets. It often comes disguised in ordinary decisions, unexpected challenges, or sudden opportunities. One choice, one response, one act of courage can become the turning point of your entire destiny. The truth is, you don't always know when that defining moment is happening, but heaven knows and eternity records it. Your future is not shaped by what happens to you, but by how you respond in those critical moments. Think about Esther, an orphan girl who found herself in the palace. She could have stayed silent. She could have played it safe. But when Mordecai told her, perhaps you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this, she realized her defining moment had arrived. Her courage didn't just save her life, it saved an entire nation. Think about David, a shepherd boy, delivering bread to his brothers. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary errand, but when he faced Goliath, that one decision to step forward marked the beginning of his kingship. Think about Peter standing in the courtyard, Denying Jesus 3 times, that was a defining moment too. But when grace restored him and he preached at Pentecost, that moment defined him as a pillar of the church. Your defining moment is not about convenience. It is about obedience. It may not come when you feel strong. It may come when you feel weak. It may not come when you feel prepared. It may come when you feel overwhelmed. But destiny doesn't wait for your feelings. It waits for your response. And the difference between those who rise and those who fall is not talent. It is not background. It is not resources. It is recognizing and responding to the moment that defines the future. So let me ask you, how will you respond when your moment comes? Will you shrink back or will you step forward? Will you let fear paralyze you or will you let faith propel you? Because some of you are standing right now at a crossroad, a place where one decision will either accelerate your destiny or delay it. And you may not see the full picture yet, but the moment is bigger than you. It is connected to others, to generations, to purposes beyond your imagination. Don't waste your defining moment trying to please people. Don't waste it waiting for applause. Don't waste it calculating the cost. Your future is shaped by bold obedience. One yes can open doors you never dreamed of. One step can shift the entire trajectory of your life. The question is, when the moment that defines your future arrives, will you recognize it? And will you rise to meet it? Because moments that define the future always reveal one truth: delay is dangerous. And when you delay, sometimes obedience turns into disobedience. But what happens when delay becomes disobedience? When delay becomes disobedience, the cost is greater than most people realize. Delay is often disguised as wisdom, as caution, as waiting for the right time, but many times it is nothing more than fear wearing a mask. And when God gives an instruction, a command, a direction, He expects it to be followed with urgency. To delay is to doubt, and to doubt is to disobey. What we call hesitation, heaven often calls rebellion. And the danger is, while we wait, while we stall, while we calculate, the moment passes, the door closes, and the opportunity is lost. Think of Saul, the king who lost his throne. God told him to utterly obey his command, but Saul delayed, made excuses, and altered the instructions. He thought partial obedience was enough, but God saw it as complete disobedience. His delay, his compromise cost him the kingdom. Think of Lot's wife. God gave a clear command: don't look back. But her delay in letting go of the past turned her into a pillar of salt. One moment of hesitation destroyed her destiny. Think of Jonah. When told to go to Nineveh, he delayed by running the other way. His delay became disobedience, and it took a storm of fish and divine intervention to bring him back on track. How many of us are guilty of the same? We say, I'll do it later. I'll obey when it makes sense. I'll move when I have more money, more resources, more support. But later often becomes never. What if the opportunity you keep delaying is the very thing that heaven has been waiting on to release your breakthrough? What if your hesitation is the reason doors remain closed? What if your waiting is actually costing you the season you prayed for? Delay is dangerous because it feels harmless. It feels like you still have time. But every day you delay, you drift further from the timing of God. And when you step out of His timing, you step out of His covering. That is why delayed obedience is no obedience at all. The voice of destiny calls for immediate response, not calculated delay. So let me ask you, what has God told you to do that you keep postponing? What dream have you been sitting on? What assignment have you kept on the shelf? The longer you wait, the harder it becomes, the more costly the consequences. Your destiny does not move on your schedule, it moves on God's. If you don't move when He says move, what was meant to be a blessing can turn into a burden. What was meant to lift you can become the very thing that weighs you down. Delay is disobedience, and disobedience always has a price. And here is the sobering reality. When you delay, you lose alignment. And when you lose alignment, you risk missing the shift. That's why aligning with God's last instruction becomes the only way forward. But what happens when alignment is the key to unlock destiny? Aligning with God's last instruction is the secret to unlocking the next chapter of destiny, because God never gives a new order until you have obeyed the previous one. Many people are waiting for fresh direction, crying out for new revelation, asking for more clarity, but heaven is silent, not because God has nothing to say, but because you have not yet obeyed what he already told you. Destiny does not unfold in confusion, it unfolds in sequence. God is a God of order, and until you align yourself with his last instruction, you will remain stuck in the same place, praying the same prayers, wondering why nothing is moving. Think about Elijah when God told him to go to the brook Cherith. That was a specific instruction. The ravens brought him food there, not anywhere else. When the brook dried up, God gave him the next instruction, to go to the widow at Zarephath. But notice, the next word came only after he had obeyed the last one. Think about Naaman desperate for healing. The prophet told him, dip 7 times in the Jordan. If Naaman had dipped only 3 or 5 times, nothing would have happened. Healing required full alignment with the last instruction. Even Jesus, when he performed his first miracle, told the servants, fill the jars with water. The miracle came only because they followed his exact words. Some of you are crying, God, show me what's next. But he's waiting on you to finish what he already said. He told you to forgive, but you're still holding grudges. He told you to step out in faith, but you're still playing safe. He told you to separate from what's pulling you down, but you're still clinging to it. And then you wonder why doors are not opening. The truth is, misalignment blocks movement. Heaven cannot release what you are not ready to carry. Alignment is not about convenience, it is about obedience. It means adjusting your will, your plans, your desires to match his. It means saying yes, even when it costs you. It means trusting his word, even when it doesn't make sense. And here is the mystery. When you align with God's last instruction, doors open without effort. Provision comes without striving, and destiny unfolds with clarity, because alignment is the key that unlocks acceleration. So let me ask you, what was the last thing God told you to do? Did you complete it? Did you fully obey it? Or have you been waiting for something new while ignoring what is already clear? Until you align, you remain delayed. But the moment you align, destiny shifts in your favor. And now, as we close, hear this. Your destiny is not waiting on chance. It is waiting on obedience. Your future is not trapped in confusion. It is hidden in alignment. This is the last warning before God shifts your destiny. Don't ignore it. Don't postpone it. Don't resist it. Obey fully, move boldly, and align completely. Because when you do, nothing in this world can stop the shift that heaven has already prepared for your life. Your moment is here. Your time is now. Your destiny is calling. Will you answer?